When my dad loaded and unloaded the airplanes, the barrels were marked with an orange stripe. There were other chemicals, there would be a white stripe or different ones, but the main ones were marked with an orange stripe.
I was born with the effects of Agent Orange. It's called extrophy of the bladder. My bladder was on the outside. Kidneys, bladder, pelvic area were all exposed, all damaged. My first doctor that was on duty that night told my parents to come in and just say goodbye.
They could see that there was a birthmark on the base of my spine and some swelling, which I guess they thought at first it was from being breech and probably put up against a bone or something.
As I've grown older, I've had a partial hysterectomy by the time I was 30. That was for reasons of lots of pain and pretty much never being off my menstrual cycle.
Even after my second surgery when I was in high school, they weren't sure what would happen once I reached the age of being married, having children, if I were to marry somebody whose dad fought in Vietnam and was sprayed with Agent Orange.
They believe all Vietnam vets will be dead in 10 years. I'm not going to let this drop. The government cannot keep lying and saying what they did didn't affect the veterans. Now they say it does affect the veterans, but it doesn't affect their children. That's not the truth.
All this medication together is about $4,000 a month. I have no insurance or anything right now. I do have the hospitals are helping me out. That supplements and gets the medication for me. But if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be able to take the medication.
After watching it a few months, they thought, okay, well, this is a tumor, a hemangioma tumor, just a mass of blood vessels.
She asked me, did you live by Times Beach at any time growing up? I said, no, but my father was in Vietnam. And she's like, oh.
I guess up until I was 16, they watched it, in which it took the removal of it for them to find that, no, that was not the case.
My parents were advocates when my dad was alive and was healthy. And I became an activist after my father's death, and I decided to try to continue my parents' work trying to advocate for the children of Vietnam veterans.
I don't have any service papers. I don't have any claim that I was anywhere near any of the things that he was, so it's even harder to prove.
Vets either came home sick or around 60 was a kiss of death. Second generation was either born right away with a birth defect that was obvious, or it was 30.
I worked on the ambulance, so I had high-paced, fast-thinking jobs. I started having issues with thinking, what can I do? What am I doing? I ended up having a diagnosis of multiple sclerosis.
The dioxin stayed dormant in my system until I was 8 years old, and then it started progressing, which makes sense because when I was 8, that's when I started my periods. I had 2 uteruses.
They're supposed to know what's in what they're making, and obviously they did. I mean, somebody had to know the formula to make Agent Orange.
He said they'd cut them in half, cook in them, do whatever they needed to do because they thought it was safe.
Would we have a child with deformities like you've seen some of the kids that were first generation Agent Orange children? What other health issues did they have?
They had no idea that it would be harmful to themselves. They knew when it went out it was going to kill the leaves or whatever to make the enemy seen much quicker, like it would kill it that fast.
For the fact that our government won't do a study is not okay. They need to complete a study on Agent Orange.
So either Monsanto knew and didn't tell the government, or Monsanto told the government and the government went ahead and used it anyway.
I had a doctor ask me if my dad had been in Vietnam. And I said, yeah, he was.
Watching my father go through everything he's gone through, it worries me that my future with this is going to be just as much of a struggle, maybe harder.
That's where the resentment that I really have. It's like, who is responsible?
And I said, in fact, my sister has kidney disease that her doctors attributed to my dad's exposure. I just never put the pieces together.
That's why we have the physical problems that we have, and my children as well.
that they won't even acknowledge or test for the second, they're never going to test for the third.